Hi, I'm Sissy, and I'm an art teacher. I use art not only to create children's stories and personal projects, but also use art to heal and release emotional traumas and stress. I want to teach you how anyone can and should create art at any age. So follow me as I teach you art techniques for your creative expression, but also for your internal well-being. In the last episode, we created ink and gouache moth illustrations in preparation for Inktober. Let's see. All right, we're recording. And start. Hey guys, welcome to a new video. I'm so glad that you've come to watch my wonderful Dragon Fairy painting session. So in this video, what we're going to be doing is like what I used to do in my live painting parties. So you're gonna need all of these supplies that I'm going to be listing right here. So you're going to need a medium, small, and large paintbrush. Ideally, you would have a flat brush. You are going to need acrylic paints, and we only use the primary colors. So primary red, yellow, blue, white, and if you want black, but I'm not using black. Also, other colors that are not the primary colors that we're going to be using are burnt umber and ochre. That creates more neutral colors. You're also going to be needing either canvas or a sketchbook with mixed media type paper or watercolor paper that you can use to paint. You're also going to need obviously water and a rag to clean your brushes and a pencil or colored pencil to create your sketch. All right, so once you have all of your supplies, sit on down in a comfy spot and press play again, and I'll wait. Okay, now that we have all of our supplies, we're going to get started. Now, please remember, there is no need to follow the directions exactly as I'm giving them to you. You can paint your dragon however you want. I'm just going to give you some guidelines for you to follow. So let me switch cameras and let's get started. All right, let's get ready with creating the sketch. So here I have with me my iPad, and I had created first in a sketchbook, and I just added some base color with some gouache just to play around to figure out what colors I wanted to use for like the base colors before creating this video. But then I took a picture of it and I used my iPad to finalize the color decisions and what I wanted to do with the background, because in the sketch I only drew the dragon and nothing more. But I really wanted to add some of my favorite flowers, which don't ask me what they're called because I have no idea. I think they're called poppies, but I believe they're called something else. But let's just call them poppies. So here I just have my 3B, I believe, pencil, which is a soft pencil, and I'm just creating the sketch while looking at my reference picture. Here I will be adding the reference picture so that you can get a better look at it, and if you would like to draw from the screen, you can do so, but also there's a link down below in the description box where you can download a image of the line art for you to print out and trace or to paint on the paper already from the printer. It's up to you. now that the sketch is done, and I sped it up for you guys because it's just boring to watch me go over lines and lines and lines. But now it's time to get your palette out, or wax paper or palette paper. Here I'm using a ceramic palette because we are going to be painting the foundation. Now, to create a foundation, we're not going to be painting the darkest values of our painting, but instead we're going to be painting the midtones. That's how I like to start. A lot of people will start with the darkest tones. I start with the midtones. So here I'm just putting dollops of my primary colors. You can see I have the blue, the yellow, then I'm going to grab some red, and then I'm going to be adding the burnt ombre and the burnt sienna and the ombre to my palette. I also have pink, but there's no need to have pink. You can just grab some red and some white to create your pink. You can also add a little bit of the yellow, so it has more of a warm tonality. I also have some green here. You don't need to have green. You can just use yellow and blue to create green. And then if you want to lighten it or give it a bit more oomph, you can add some burnt sienna to make it darker, or you can add some ombre to make it more of a neutral green. And so once you have all your paint on your canvas, I tend to start out with small amounts because with acrylic paints, they dry out very fast. So you don't want to have a huge mound of whatever color and then you've wasted that paint. That's the downside with acrylics. Now here I'm just grabbing my brushes. I have a whole bunch of brushes, as you can see, but for this painting, I'm only going to be using one medium-sized round brush, two flat brushes. One is a larger one is a smaller one, and then a fine round brush for details. That's all I'm using. So here you can see I'm pulling them out, just making sure I have the right ones. These are my go-to brushes, and especially with this size of a canvas, which is an A4 canvas, I did not want to use very big brushes because I didn't want to paint over all of my pencil work. I wanted to have just a pink base for the dragon. I didn't want any of the dark browns that I was going to use for the background. So with me, the colors that I'm going to be using for the base painting are going to be different tonalities of brown and ombre, and I add a little bit of blue to the brown to give it some of a cold tonality. Later on in this painting session, I do go back and I repaint the background to a darker tone because I thought it was a bit too light. But that's the beauty of acrylics, that you can paint and then make a mistake and then paint over it. So I'm just creating here a mixture of the ochre with some blue for the lighter areas of the painting, and then I just go on from there. So I'm going to do another bit of a speeding up of this portion, but all I'm doing is just one base coat of the base colors of the background, of the dragon, of the wings, and of the flowers. And so here you can really let your imagination go wild and pick whatever color you want and see fit. And as you can see, I have my sketch right next to me, and I knew that I wanted the wings to be a bluish turquoise aqua color, and I wanted the dragon to be pink, and I wanted the background to be like an orangey ochre color. However, I changed it that direction. I went darker because it's a dragon fairy and they come out at night, because that's logical to me. So let's speed it up. Okay, so we've done the foundation painting. Everything is covered in the mid-tone of whatever it is that we want it to be. And this is where the fun starts. Now, it is also the point in the painting process that it looks really ugly. If you're not used to painting with acrylics where it involves a lot of back and forth, you might be thinking, oh my God, this is not going to look well. I probably ruined it. What am I doing? Don't fret. Every single painting in the history of art has had an ugly phase. And this, my friends, is the ugly phase of the fairy dragon. It doesn't look even. It doesn't look detailed enough. It just looks like blotches of colored in these misshaped. But don't worry, now we get to play. Now we're going to be adding some darker values to things. And here I start with a flower. And as you can see, I have my iPad next to me with a more detailed sketch. As I told you before, after creating the initial sketch in my sketchbook, I took a picture of it and I went to Procreate and I created this illustration that you see here of the dragon. I really loved it. And so I already knew the values of things because I had some reference pictures for the flowers. The dragon was pure imagination, but everything else, there was a reference picture, in other words, the flowers. So I knew which areas had to be darker, which areas had to be lighter. I know where my light was coming from, which is the top left corner. And so I knew that everything that was facing that top left corner would be receiving light. And since they're three-dimensional, I knew that there were going to be areas that were coming out towards the light that would be lighter and areas that were tucked away that would have shades and shadows. So here I have the colors that I had mixed so I could add a little bit of blue if I wanted it to make darker, or the burnt sienna to make it darker, or a bit of red if it's a red color. But usually I use a burnt sienna to make things darker. And if it needs to be lighter, I either add yellow or white to make it pop. Sometimes when I want a very vivid fluorescent-y type of color, I add some yellow to it and it really gives it a pop. Or white also does the same trick. So that's what you're going to be doing here. You're just going to be looking at my illustration. I will be adding it to the screen right here. And you're going to be adding the lighter tones and the darker tones. And just play around, because if anything doesn't feel right, don't you worry. You can just wait until it dries and then cover it up. All right, everyone. We are now approaching the final stages of the painting. This is where I decided that I did not like the background as it was, and I thought that it needed to be darker. The contrast was just too mild between the pink and the ochre of the background. So I wanted it to be a nice dark bluish brown, to give it a feel of, I don't know, more whimsy, because there's this little dragon fairy floating around among the flowers holding, I don't know, a panier. I'm so sorry, I'm learning French, so a panier full of flowers that are even smaller. Probably because it's a he, even though the dragon is pink, he is taking these flowers back home to his dwelling. I have a whole story. That's how my mind works. But so I wanted to create a darker background for the little dragon fairy. And with acrylics, you can do that. And so I have a thin, flat brush, I believe, in this moment, but then I also use a round brush. And I just go around what I've painted very slowly, very very gently. I'll leave that in there for your entertainment. I'm very tired. It's quite late here. So excuse my bloopers. I go around these flowers and the dragon very gently and smoothly and slowly to make sure that I don't mess it up. So I'll speed it up and then I'll come back to say goodbye. Okay guys, well I hope you enjoyed this painting online session. I always love drawing dragons, so it was a pleasure for me to do. Don't forget that I post a whole lot of stuff that I don't post here on YouTube on my Patreon. And it's quite easy, you just go to patreon.com/sissyprince, the link will be down below. And then for only €5, there's only one tier, you get all this exclusive content of downloadables, illustrations, comics, and videos that I don't post here. So thanks for watching. I hope you had a great time, and I'll see you next time.